Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Monday, 8 p.m. After a week off, we are back for the online Darts Live Lounge with me, Phill, Bars, Jack Garwood, and the boys and gentlemen. We have made it through arguably the most difficult time we've faced at OD, trying to get everything covered. We did it, and we're still standing.
Just about. What a crazy 12 days.
The first Monday night show I think I've ever done with an energy drink to hand, and it's very much needed tonight. I think we've all probably got one somewhere. So, but yeah, we got through it.
On them. We did it. And first of all, I want to thank every single one of you that have come through it with us. I know there's been loads of you that have watched just about every single bit of content we've put out over the last 12 days. So thank you very, very much. Again, the chat room is absolutely buzzing tonight already. Rose, James, Matthew, Curtis, Kieran are all in. Course Craig is in. Malachi, KR3000, Tommy, Max, Daniel, Owen, Bob. And we hear whispers on the grapevine that there may be a few celebrities watching as well in the darting world, which is all good. A couple of people told us they're going to be tuning in, which is always nice.
The amount of people that have told us off in the last week for not having a show last Monday is ridiculous. What's going on?
Yeah, it was like, how dare you have a night off? Sorry. But yeah, look, we made it, which is the important thing. Highlight, boys, before we get into it, have you got one memory over the last 12 days that sticks with you?
Going to bed? That's a lie. I didn't even get my in bed last night. I went and stayed at Poppy's. I don't really know. Friday night was pretty decent.
I've got one.
Go on.
Glen Durham finally getting a win. That I was buzzing, absolutely buzzing about that on the Pro Tour on the Friday, was it? Friday or Saturday when he got a couple of wins. That for me, I was really happy for Glenn. Obviously, seeing him then afterwards as well at at Lakeside, but that really stood out for me. He stood seeing back to winning ways.
Yeah, no, look, there's been
all my Dark Connect windows ready and forgot that there was Pro Tours last weekend as well.
Oh, yeah, look, it's been a troublesome time, a good time as well. All at once, we've had Pro Tours, Premier Leagues, WDF, World Seniors. It has just been relentless, chaps.
Yeah. Understatement of the year has been literally darts every single. It's not even just been darts every single day. There's been multiple darts constantly for about the last week and a half. Because even when the WDF has had a break or hasn't been on, the Live League's been back in full flow. We've had Pro Tours. We've had Seniors qualifiers last week, or the weekend just gone. We've had, I don't even know where to go, 2 Fallout bars. Last weekend, 12 hours of me on the stream. Sorry for everyone that had to go through that.
Don't beat yourself up, Gob. It was good, and we got there. Is the
I don't
important
like the
thing.
sound of my own voice, so how everybody else put up with it, I don't know.
Obviously, Boise, excellent job flying solo for the first time. How did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was certainly a different experience, learning every day.
It's good.
What I probably will say is that the players made it a lot easier for me, some of which would be difficult. We speak about certain players that have made it difficult in the PDC for you, but the players at the WDF, the majority of them were outstanding. So it was certainly an experience. But yeah, overall it was very, very good. Very tiring, but well worth it.
Yeah, of course. We're going to jump in. Hopefully, Chris Murphy's going to be jumping on at some point. I know he's in a hotel room, so as long as the Wi-Fi holds up, Murphy's going to jump on at some point as well. Johnny is in. All good. Of course, Mike, James, how are we all doing? James is in as always. Right, we're going to try and do this in not chronological order because it will just make no sense. We're going to try and block it off and we'll do tournaments by tournaments. Does that make sense? Because if we just do it in chronological order, it will just be absolutely all over the place. So we'll start with...
It will anyway, let's be honest. It will anyway, but I think that's probably the best way of what we can do with so much.
We'll start with the Lakeside. I think it's a good place to start. And my apologies, I've had that much to crop. We haven't got individual the draw graphic. I'm even tired. The draw bracket up. So we've just got bits to talk about and photos to put up. But we will go in depth on it all. But first up, chaps, the Lakeside in general. Overriding thoughts to start with.
From a spectator point, I'll go first because you two have been there, so you've had more of the inside scoop. From a spectator point, I thought they've done pretty well from outside. Once the tournament started to get going a little bit, early round standard perhaps wasn't as ridiculously high as you might have hoped for, as expected. Jim McEwen chucked in 101, but there was some very, very scrappy games. But that's what you get when you're going to have wide fields with international qualifiers that aren't playing as regularly as you might get in the UK or compared to the Pro Tour standard, etc. But as the tournament goes on, the standard starts to creep up. And there were some really good matches in there as well. Like even one of the better matches of the weekend was Cami versus Thibaut Tricot, which finished mid-80s average each because they missed darts at double at the same time. It created tension at the same time. So in terms of tournament, from watching at home, the production I thought was really, really good, especially once they got the hang of it. First couple of days, I think a couple of cameramen might have got a few tell-ins off. If your venue's empty, don't be panning your cameras around. That's not the best advert for it at all. But yeah, once they got the hang of it, I thought production was really, really good. The presentation team, I forgot her name who hosted it. Really, really sorry. But the pundits they used, Nico, Tony O'Shea.
Lindsay from the
yeah,
US.
I thought Lindsay was fantastic. Commentary team, I know we've got him on the show, but Chris Murphy was absolutely outstanding. Once again, that's 2 TV gigs so far this year, and he's smashed both of them completely. And everybody else they've had jump in the commentary box throughout the week. I thought Glenn Durrant did a really, really good job, especially as he grew into it throughout the day. Scott Mitchell is fantastic. And actually, and someone that we need to hear more of, Lorraine Winstanley as well. Her insight on the final night was superb. She talks about the game in a different way, or a way that we're probably more used to hearing on TV than any other of the female pundits we've ever had. And I think that makes it easy to connect with her.
Superb.
Yeah, I thought she was brilliant, and she definitely should be getting phone calls from here, there, and everywhere at the minute to get her on some other coverage, because I thought the way that she speaks about the ladies' game, the way that she talks about the sport in general is just, she just doesn't overcomplicate it, doesn't get caught up in what she thinks she needs to say. It's just, that's brilliant, moves on, doesn't hesitate for what language do I need to use here or anything like that. She just gets it, and she's brilliant.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Boyce, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think obviously from a production side and a Tom's side, it would be probably wrong for me to overly talk about that, because obviously when you're in the arena, you don't get to see that part of it, and that's probably where I'll be relying on Dob to sort of say that. On the stage, I think I probably had what I expected, and in some games, maybe even a little bit more. Obviously, we'll go into the details of some of them, but some of the performances, like the final from Beau yesterday, is just one, but some of those were just probably a level above. There were a couple in there from Rianne as well in the ladies' games that I thought was outstanding. A couple in the gents' games as well, gym in the early rounds, and even the drama. One of the games that will stand out for me will be the Tebow and Cam one, just for the drama. So from the players' perspective, I thought, like I said, he delivered more than probably what I expected, and there was pretty high expectations because of the players who were in there. The rest of which, there's probably areas that still need to be looked upon to improve. One of which is, I'm going to mention, as we can see it in front of our screen now, I just don't like the look of that trophy for a World Championship at all. And I spoke to a few players as well around it, one of which I won't name him, but just said it looks like someone's pinched a slice of my pizza, and that's all the trophy looks like. So there's a lot of the players who had the same opinion, but it didn't stand as a World Championship trophy, and I think that's the difference. If it was an individual tournament, then maybe, but that's an opinion thing, I guess, on the trophy. From a WDF point of view, there was aspects of it that was good. There was aspects of it that need to be worked upon. I'm sure when we delve through looking at the tournament in just a little bit more detail, we'll probably pick out a few of those on both a positive and a negative.
Yeah, look, I thought on the hockey, I thought there was some really, really good positive stuff. And what I'm going to say now, I say the same about the PDC. The field wasn't good enough to go to the numbers they went to. I think for me, it should have been 32 and 16. Later on in the tournament, I thought the darts were very, very good. But I think, was it the Sunday was arguably the worst day of TV darts I can ever remember. And I say the same about the early rounds at the World Championship at Ali Pali as well. That I understand the game has to grow, but also when you're showcasing it on TV, the talent needs to be there to showcase, and I don't think the depth is there yet.
Yeah, quite possibly. I guess what the flip of that is, it's a World Championship, so to give qualifiers and different nations the opportunity to compete in there, I think then it might be the right choice to do that. It's only 2 days where you had that extra players playing in the men's part of the draw anyway. Just when you come to the Monday, you're already down to the top 32. So I can understand why they did that. Just one thing that I didn't mention that I probably still think needs to be mentioned is, we've spoke about it a lot previously, just the tickets. I know Dob mentioned the camera being spun around the venue. That did highlight how bad it was early on in that, and that is, for me, was solely down to the price. We saw a great night on the Wednesday, I think, after the generator failed, but there was free tickets, but it created such a great atmosphere. And I'm not saying they should be giving free tickets away because they're a business and obviously they need to make money, but they also need to evaluate that actually we need to create a good atmosphere for this to run year on year. So that is something that needs to be looked at then, because the early rounds, the afternoon sessions, which you're always going to struggle with, PDC do as well, but they need to look at revaluing them ticket prices, because it's not fair on some of the players. For me as well, they've got to a World Championship and then they're playing in front of a very, very, very small number, and you can hear absolutely everything at that point, and it doesn't have that World Championship.
The way that the tickets were structured, to have to buy an all-day ticket for Saturday, for instance, we knew we were going to finish a little bit earlier in Reading than we perhaps anticipated, and we said, what should we do this evening? Should we go to Lakeside to watch? £66 each it would have cost us to go and watch 2 semi-finals and 2 men's semi-finals and a ladies semi-final. The minute we had that, we're like, not a chance.
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
I'm also obviously a little bit older than you guys, and I can remember Lakeside in the heyday. And look, yeah, for me, having now it's been done, going back to Lakeside was not the right option, in my opinion. Nostalgia is great, and I get it. However, for me, the venue is not accessible anymore, and I think that puts people off going there, as in the casual. You'll get your diehards that will always go back to Lakeside, and I get that. But it's not easy to get to, in terms of you have to get a train or 2 trains and a cab, which hikes the price up ridiculously as well. And the biggest disappointment for me was walking in there on Saturday, looking at the stage, and barring, I think, a Discovery Plus logo and a WDF logo over a BDO logo, it was exactly the same. And to a fan, a casual fan that doesn't follow the circuit religiously, but knows, for want of a better word, the shit that went through with the BDO and the hammering it got, if you put a picture to a casual fan of the 2019 stage and the 2022, there is absolutely no different. You cannot tell them apart. And for me, that's quite a problem, because the BDO reputation is, let's be fair, lower than low, and people are going to look at it and go, oh, it's the BDO.
Yeah, and I think there's a second part to that the WDF haven't moved away from that. I.e., you're holding Wayne Warren and Material up on the stage as reigning champions, and it's that, is there a split or isn't there a split? Was this the first World Championship? And if it is, you can't have reigning champions. I understand why they've told them up as reigning champions, everything that Wayne's done for 100% deserves to, but there's never really been that clear split of, it's just someone's taken over what was already there, and there still are. So I don't know. It's just never been clear that it is. Is it a first one, or is it a carry on of where we've been before?
Gob looks as he's poised to say something.
The BDO ran the World Championship, always was on behalf of the WDF, but I completely understand what you're both saying. The whole situation with Des Jacklin 18... No, let me finish. The whole situation with Des Jacklin 18 months ago left that name in an untenable position. Nobody was ever going to work with the BDO, and I agree with Phill. I think that this was the perfect time to make a new distinction and show off something a little bit different. And my thoughts have changed a couple of times over the week of the tournament. I don't want to sound like it was a great tournament for them. They just had to get it off the ground, up and running, to show that this side of the game is still viable as something for the players to aim for. Because you're always going to need an amateur side of the game. You're always going to need the grassroots side of the game, somewhere for all the federations to merge and something for the players to aim for. If there's no end goal, you don't have any motivation in that side of the circuit at all. So you always need something like this to get off the ground. But commercially, you need something bigger at the top end. There's more comments and that to come on that side of the game. We all know how Chris Mason felt about the tournament in advance, etc. And he wasn't the only one questioning about the prize money and Bob Potter's inclusion in that as well. And this was the perfect time to showcase you've got a different name, a different brand, not a competitor to the PDC. I thought that the commentary team and punditry team were far more open about name dropping other organisations. I think the fact that Chris Murphy and Paul Nicholson were involved certainly helped that, as they work on both and they use their own experiences and were just like, this is the best way to approach talking about the sport. It's completely the way to do it. But yeah, there wasn't a big enough distinction made now between that BDO and WDF, and there's still going to be that hesitancy given the ticket sales were so bad and that it was pushed away from January, and there's been, it was for COVID reasons, but then was it for ticket reasons? And there'll never be a different official line on that, but there's always going to be that doubt in people's minds before they get involved commercially with it.
Just on what you said, Gob, about, I know that it was always the WDF sanctioned it and it was run by the BDO, and this was one of my points, that the last BDO World Championship was not sanctioned by the WDF. They took themselves away from it. So then to introduce Wayne Warren as the reigning world champion didn't sit right when they hadn't sanctioned the last tournament.
Yeah. If anything, it should have been Does it?
Correct. If you're going by that, because they withdrew it. for all intents and purposes, that 2020 BDO World Championship at the O2 was a one-off individual tournament because it wasn't sanctioned by anyone.
Yeah.
And look, there was a couple of other bits that really didn't sit right. But we'll talk about darts in a minute. And no, I'm not trying to bash it here entirely because there were lots of good bits. But quarterfinals night, when an hour before a game you're trying to move a quarterfinal and get people to play early, putting not pressure on them, but taking them to one side in the practice room, interrupting their preparation to move a world quarterfinal is not right.
Yeah, it's not right in the manner they've done it. The reason they was moving it was for a player, and that player wasn't aware of it until after anyway. So it wasn't that they'd requested it. And then the reason that was given for that player to want the Dame to be moved, or the WDF to want to move that Dame, for then that player to be in the arena on camera with a drink in hand but wasn't very well, just didn't seemed to be a lack of communication between the people who were trying to make the decision to move a Dame and the TV and the production team. So surely if they wanted to move away from that, they wouldn't be showing that person on camera after they've said that. I'm sure it was mentioned on commentary that she had a bit of food.
They dropped it on comms that they said that they're trying to move it, so it's not a secret or anything. So like that. It's openly discussed on comms.
They was trying to move it because Beau had suspected food poisoning, but then 20 minutes, probably less than that, after her Dame. Probably about 20 minutes, obviously, after her done her media duties. She was then shown on TV screen with a drink in her hand, which is fine that she can have a drink, but the fact that they released that she was struggling with that and then showing her afterwards just didn't sit right. And it's not fair on the two players that they asked to move. Spoke to both players afterwards, and neither of them come up with any excuses about the performances. James, who lost, said it had no impact on what happened on the stage, but it was one of those that shouldn't have happened. And I think in other organisations, not just PDC, even when we looked at seniors, any other events, that wouldn't have happened and shouldn't have happened. So it wasn't right and shouldn't, like I said, wasn't fair on the two players who had to compete in that game.
No. And look, back to the darts, because there'll be other talking points, no doubt. Some very, very good overall performances as well. Like Gob said, some games that gripped us, that you don't have to be 10 plus averages to grip us. Some other good performances as well. Jared Cole introduced himself to a wider audience, boys. I know he lost to Brian Roman in a really good game in the third round, but Jared really introduced himself to a wider audience.
Yeah, look, superb way to start the tournament. That was one that people were questioning, why is this on first? And actually, when you get a game of that quality up there, or a performance of that quality from Jared Cole to open up, you got Wolfie there, which freed him up a little bit to do media work throughout the week, I guess. I don't think that was part of the reasoning, but it certainly helped the production having somebody like Wolfie there that can reference years gone by. Jared was superb.
Yeah. Again, we had a world record or record average for Lakeside. Richard Vinstra to beat Luke Littler. I know there was a lot of pressure on Luke, and although he lost 3-0, can't really do a lot against that. Luke's averaged nearly 93 himself, which is good darts. But Vinstra, just almost clipping the 105, boys, he was unplayable.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was only first to 3. But how well he was playing, that probably could have done first to 5, and I wouldn't have been surprised if his average was still there, because he just looked in that mode that night. Everything was just going perfectly for him, and his darts were lay, how they were going in the bed, there was smack band in the middle of all of them. That 104.91 probably could have lasted. Vinstra would have probably hoped that would have come a bit later on in the tournament, because it didn't look like that was going to stop. It didn't look like he wanted to come off the stage, because it was just a fantastic performance. But a massive shout out to Luke Littler. at that age, down on the stage, putting in a performance of 92 still and losing 3-0. As I said, if someone just looks at the scoreline, they'll think he hasn't turned up, but there wasn't much he could have done to compete with Richard
I can't
that
remember
day.
who tweeted it. I think it was either Nico or Dawson who said the only thing that Veenstra missed the entire match was trying to throw his darts on the table at the end of the set.
Yeah, and that's about right. It was just an outstanding clinical performance, and didn't allow Luke to get into his rhythm. But like I says, it was just fantastic all round. But Luke is certainly someone who, speaking to a few times, has got the right mentality to really push on in this game, and it will be a great experience for him to probably be on the back end of that. However, he probably won't feel it right now, but in years to come, he'll probably look back on that as a great experience.
Yeah. Jim McEwen, Neil Duff in the quarterfinals. Neil did it the hard way, but again, that game had us gripped. Because even at 3-0, Neil wasn't... You never felt Neil was out of that game.
No, and he picked up that fourth set and it just turned the tide a little bit, didn't it? Jim missed match darts in that one. He missed match darts in legs in set 6 as well, I think, off the 1-3-8. And Duff just found something in his scoring phase that just made it that much more difficult for Jim to cling on and hold on to sets. I thought Jim was brilliant all week. He came through some really, really tough ties throughout the week, starting off. Landon Gardner was a tough one, Aaron Turner. The battle against Warby the round before as well was superb. They just never gave up, either of those two. But yeah, Neil Duff just turned it around. I think it was one of them where the break seemed to come at the wrong time.
Yeah.
If the breaks are set earlier or a set later, I think Jim probably does him, but the breaks just seemed to happen at the right time for Neil to go and compose himself, get ready, go again, and then just keep his foot on the gas when he needed it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was really, really, really good. Cameron Menzies, again, James Hurrell, quarterfinal, brilliant from Menzies, Boise. Yeah,
it was brilliant, and it was just that first set for me. Both players sort of admitted it as well afterwards that it was that first set. Cameron Menzies broke the throw early on, and probably then, I think after he broke that one, he then reeled off another 6 leads, and he was just comfortable then throughout. And at that point, obviously, he was favourite. There's a lot of talk about him, but James Hurrell, a lot of pressure on his shoulders, as well as at the time going into the tournament was ranked number 1 in the WDF. But that first set really set the precedence to do that. Another quarterfinal for me that hasn't been mentioned yet, but Andy Barnes from Belgium, if he'd hit a double, he would have been very close to picking up that title on Sunday, because his scoring throughout was just incredible. He's doubling at the back ends of games. He struggled for a couple of rounds as well, but even then, Stockmarsh, I think it was in the previous round, averaged 102, but that average could have probably challenged Veenstra if his doubling was there. But then against Tebow, it was just about, if he would have took his chances, he would have got through that one. So quarterfinal.
It's not really a Tree Cole's week, was it?
It certainly was. It survived 8, I think, by then. Was it 8? Yeah, 6 in an early round and then 2. So that quarterfinal day for me was probably the one that will stand out from the men's game. It was just a very, very good day for the men's darts on that Friday.
Yeah, no, agreed. It was good. And then semi-finals, Veenstra never really got going against Duff. And after the performance he put in the previous 2 rounds, was expecting a little bit more from Veenstra. Look, Neil Duff was superb, nearly 94 average, but not quite there from Veenstra in the first semi-final goal.
That performance there is why Veenstra's never really taken off. He's been to similar sorts of stages at the Lakeside before, played well, looked really good, little bit flat when you get to the back end, a little bit like Jan Dekker used to be. He used to play well, get through the first couple of rounds, hit a quarter, hit a semi-final, not there when he needs it most. Neil Duff was superb as he has been, stayed at a pretty steady level throughout his tournament. But yeah, Veenstra just not getting it when he needed it most, pretty much.
Yeah. And then obviously we spoke about the Tricol Menzies semi-final, and look, it had us gripped. It could have gone one way, could have gone the other, but Thibaut held his nerve in the end. But that's my worry for Tricol. Fabulous player, but cannot separate his emotion from coming out. And we saw it both in semi-final and final. Although he got over the line in the semi, he was an emotional wreck, Boise.
Yeah, it was. It was 2-0 up and 4-2 up, I think, and come back. And it was Thibaut was getting emotional then at 4 apiece. You could see that going into that last set. He found a fantastic lead with a 180, 140, I think it was 134, to set it up. Struggled with his doubles, but the emotion was showing then. He missed 11 match darts, and at that point, you are probably thinking that it is going to be Cam's day. The fans are all behind Cam. But like I says, Thibaut's scoring in that final set just pulled him apart from Cameron. But that was the worry going into the final. All the talk around the final was if Thibaut could hold it together and then early lead, then he could go on and lift the trophy. It was just, can he hold it together? Because there was so much emotion in that semi-final from both Thibaut and Cameron. Obviously, Thibaut coming back the next day, it was all about can he hold his emotions together going into that final.
I'd going into the final, just one of the comments from Paldrick in the chat room. Yeah, that comment has caused some controversy this weekend. It was the Modus World Final. Have they both played in the live league, gents?
Yes.
It doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter, does it? Isn't it all about averages? Only about averages that matter.
But the final, it was an absolute cracker. And again, Thibaut Tricol came out of the blocks flying, but once Neil got in front, Gob, you just felt it was going to take a huge effort from Thibaut to wrestle it off of him.
Oh, I hoped you weren't going to ask me about this because I can't lie. I watched the Masters instead. Rory was on the charge and you boys were there. I was like, oh, I'll get away with this. He won't ask me about the final, will he?
All right, we'll go to Boise.
Look, 12 days. Look, I was all died out by then. I'll be honest. I saw bits of the ladies' game, but I saw on Twitter that Beau was averaging 105 whilst I was on the train on the way back, so I tried to catch as much of that as I can, and I've watched that one back. I haven't had a chance to watch the men's final back yet.
Yeah, we'll let you off with this one, Dob. Thibaut flying out 2-0, 3-1 up. But we've just seen with Neil all week that his battling qualities, he seemed to, from Tuesday, I think was his opening day, from that first couple of sets, he was getting the fans on side. So even though he was bringing more and more people over as the week progressed, he was having the Lakeside crowd behind him. And as we said, I think Neil knew that he had to stick with Thibaut because of what Thibaut done for on the Saturday, that if he could stay close to him, then he would be the favourite down into that final set and to win it 3-0. But great credit to Thibaut Tricol across the whole week, coming in as number 2 seed, getting to the final. But it was his destiny, as he kept saying. He was down to lift it. He was confident. He was arrogant. All these words that he used himself. But on the night, he got the job done. And as he said, he'll always be now the world champion. And it's what comes next. Because I'm sure, as Dob was at the seniors, one thing that he did mention in his post-match conference, that he's turning 50 very soon. So senior tour card could be on the horizon for Neil. However,
one of the field made their way over. I was surprised he didn't have a couple of others.
However, Dob, what he did say is, which obviously will be a question going to the people at the World Seniors, is, as he's now a world champion, he should get an invite.
Look at me for that.
We have got a clip from Neil as well before we move on to the ladies.
Yeah, but it's like I said to you earlier in the week, it's not as if the guys are going out there and they're waving it on the stage, this tour card on the stage. They still have to go out there and they still have to play a game. Probably the best about it was that none of the 5 or 6 tour card holders made it to the final. It was 2 guys who have done the tour, who have travelled around Europe, who spent their money and have worked hard to get the points. The other guys did as well, but I'm not going to get into the politics of it. They're not going to turn down their money not to come. Fair play to them. But at the end of the day, tour card, no tour card, any one of the guys that played it, 40 guys that from that started, could have a tour card. They're all good enough to do it. But it's just you got to go up there with your 3 darts. What you done at Goose School's irrelevant. But I wish them all the best. I hope they go well. And yeah, maybe one day I'll be down there to join them. I would love to be in it. I would love to be in it. I was sitting out earlier on. I was talking to Jenny Fordham, and the last time, the year Andy qualified, he beat me in the final. I'd played brilliant all night, and then the big man just took me out with the roots. So yeah, I would love a crack at it. I would love to be walking out to a PDC crowd, but I think it'll be very Mervyn King, my buds in. I don't know where I'd be giving it. All the Dixie that I was giving it the other night, getting them riled up. Yeah, I love it.
Neil Duff, world champion. Many congratulations.
Come on. Cheers.
What are you shaking your head for?
I didn't like that first bit because I don't see the relevance. There was too much made of the 6 tour card holders not winning it, because when they all qualified for this event, they're all in exactly the same place. The fact they've then gone and they've not even necessarily won a tournament at PDC level to win a tour card.
So
this isn't just from players, it's from everybody out there. It's the instant reaction to the last tour card I got on Cameron Menzies was, they're all gone. Oh yeah, look at this, isn't it brilliant? And that just creates too much of a divide. There was an allowance made to get these players into the field to protect this tournament in some respect, because otherwise the seedings would have been absolutely all over the shop. The amount of players being invited from here, there and everywhere were absolutely all over the place. You look at other players that have missed out that would have been in the same position, Jim Williams, who we understand isn't the happiest about everybody else being invited back in, despite the fact he would have been there as well. There's just too much made of the fact that either the tour card holders there or not didn't survive it and go on to win it, or that players played in the online league. It's exactly the same mentality 5 years ago that meant people didn't give a crap about the BDO.
Dob, so what the point was from the players, so this is not all the players, but some of the players who didn't go to Tewstall this year,
correct.
Neil being one of which, decided not to go to Tewstall this year because he was told if he goes and qualifies, the understanding was he wouldn't be able to play at Lakeside. Right. So Neil didn't go on the basis of, if I go, I risked playing at a World Championship at Lakeside, to then find out that those players who went and were successful were then able to play. And it's not just Neil, so I don't want to throw it just his way, but obviously he's the winner who spoke about it. There was a number of players who weren't happy because they didn't go to Tewstall on the understanding that they wouldn't be able to play at Lakeside if they qualified. And that's why some of those
I appreciate that, but
annoyed.
He's just
do you understand the players?
He's just not the prize money he's got. His first thought is, those 6 weren't there. Those 6 didn't stand in my way.
Yeah, but God, honestly, there's an undercurrent there that there were a lot of unhappy players that they were allowed to play. When you were there was a massive divide on this. A lot not happy about it.
That's no fault of the 6.
No, it's not the fault of the 6.
No, it's not the fault of the 6, but some of those players were more than happy to let us know that they were over the moon. Those tour card holders were out at every given opportunity. One of them lost.
Yeah.
Incredibly petty.
No different to Phil Taylor once saying they shouldn't be here at the Grand Slam. There will always be a darting divide. There always will be, and that has proved this being at Lakeside for these 9 days or whatever it was has proved to me that it hasn't gone away. There is still a huge divide.
That's the general point I'm making. There's clearly better communication lines between the PDC and the WDF. They have to learn to coexist, because the longer the players keep up their mentality and everything else that's gone on in the comments, etc., the minute that's your first reaction to being a world champion, whether you resent the decision for them to be there or not, if you're voicing it in that regard, I just don't get where you expect this is going to go.
And I'm just throwing it out there. Lakeside champion, not world champion.
So John McDonald will introduce him if he ever makes it to the PDC.
There's only one world champion, and that's Mr. Wright.
Amateur
world champion or Lakeside world champion, not just world champion. Because if you're calling them just the world champion, you are putting them on equal pedestals.
WDF world champion.
In sport, you are either amateur or you are professional. In all sport, you are amateur or you're professional.
What about boxing when you've got 4 world titles and you've got different title holders? They're all world champions.
And I disagree with that. They should be the same as UFC.
Is Tyson Fury world champion?
Should be 1 champion per weight division. And I say the same about that.
What about wrestling?
You're amateur or you're professional. And if you're not labelling it as the Amateur World Championships, you're putting it on a pedestal the same as Peter Wright.
So I guess the flip of it, so for me, it's a WDF World Champion, but then if Peter Wright in 5 years comes over to, doesn't play in PDC anymore and plays at Lakeside, should he be introduced as the world champion, 2 times world champion, or the 2 times PDC world champion?
2 times professional world champion.
So these can be told 2 times. Neil can be the WDF world champion, can't he?
World Darts Federation. World is putting it on a level.
World represents the field that are eligible to play in it. That's all. Mark, where is it?
You
wrestling sucks, Mark. That's where I'm going with this. Phill, give me the stone cold.
Does it call himself a 3-time Lakeside champion? Does not call himself world champion. Calls himself 3 times Lakeside champion.
BDO for life, so let's not go into that, shall we? It always will be a mess. It's always going to be a mess. Now, can we talk about the most exciting part of the week, the women's tournament, please? Actually, one more point on the men's, and this isn't a dig at Neil. For the good of the game, I think there's quite a few people that would have preferred to see Thibaut Tricot win. And to make the final like he did was superb. But the power of a French world champion would have gone a lot further in the game than Neil Duff. That's not to say that what Neil Duff did wasn't amazing. Yeah. I'm trying to take anything away from him. But if you could have written it earlier in the week, you'd have written Thibaut Tricot as a world champion or Luke Littler. You want a story. You want something that stands out. Neil Duff, very, very good performance throughout the week, is a world champion. Nobody can ever take that away from him. But in terms of drawing eyes to the men's WDF World Championship title, there were other players in the field that would have done more for this side of the sport. It's not his fault. But in terms of a storyline, Thibaut Tricot winning the World Championships would have been, now can we get France on the map? And if they're not in the PDC World Cup, I'll be very, very surprised.
Moving on, Gob. I'm going to have to be careful how I word stuff here.
No, and look, Padre, you keep bringing up Barney, and we've been over this before on the show, etc. When Barney was winning BDO world titles, the two organisations were comparable. The standard was comparable. Arguably, you had Barney, Richie Burnett, and a couple of others in the BDO that actually made the top 5 or 6 in the BDO better than the PDC. The PDC had Phill Taylor, Dennis Priestley, and a couple of others. The depth in the BDO was better. But once that exodus started in the early to late 2000s, that's where it starts becoming a little bit borderline. Martin Adams and Scott Mitchell and Scott Waite second is probably where you're looking at it at the absolute latest to start being comparable, as the two organisations just went in polar opposite directions.
Yeah, agreed. Over to you then, Gob.
Yes. Look, the best thing, and I said this pre-tournament, and I'm going to say it post-tournament, the best thing about the WDF, BDO, Lakeside World Championships for the last few years for me has been the women's game. Because we don't get this in the PDC. It's a chance to see the best female players in the world. Granted, some of them weren't there this year. Fallon withdrew. Lisa hadn't qualified. Now that she lost her tour card, Anastasia, we're not getting into the politics of that one again. But a star is born. Some people are born to be a world champion. And look, we first knew about Beau Greaves 6-7 years ago when she's 11 and 12 years old playing darts. There's BBC articles on her at 12 years old. The amount of pressure that has been on Beau Greaves' shoulders to deliver a world title has been there throughout her entire teenage years, and to come up and deliver it in the manner that she did, in the route to the final that she had, which is arguably one of the toughest ones in the tournament. Yes, I know Mikuru, the reigning world champion, was defeated before she had a chance to play her, but Aileen de Graaf has got more than enough experience up on that stage as well. The way that the draw went for Beau, she was superb. That performance in the final would have been the record average if it wasn't for the fact this is the first time they've extended the format of the women's final. So for that to drop in third of all time, still the high, it's just so good. That first set was unplayable at absolutely any level. You put that up on the PDC World Championship stage at Alexandra Palace, and you'll do very, very well to find players that could have lived with that first set. She was absolutely superb.
To add to that, Dob, talking about the average and the number, obviously it was a shorter game than the men's, but average more than Neil, who went on to pick the men's trophy as well, just shows the level that Beau performed at. For them 4 sets, obviously, Neil played 11.
That has to be the first time ever that the women's world championship has been won with a better average than the men's.
Correct. She
and
was
to
just
be the youngest ever senior world champion, beating Jelle Klassen by just under 3 years, I think it is. Look, that could be the first of many. And look, I know that she's had issues in the past couple of years. Lorraine mentioned the D word on commentary when she was on about it, which look, you try not to mention as often as possible. But the fact that Beau's had so many issues with her throw for the last 18 months, struggling to let go of it, I think was the culmination of the pressure that's been put on her for so many years now to go and get this title delivered. She'd been to the Indigo. Did she go to the Lakeside 1 year before that as well? I'm not 100% sure.
No, this was a Lakeside debut.
This was a Lakeside debut, yeah. So it's the second World Championship appearance. The fact it kept building up, it was coming up, the favourite, she's playing well, etc. All that pressure, I think, caused the issues that she had for the last couple of years. And she was still comfortably beating fields of players that included Dieter Hedman, Trina Gulliver, and Anastasia, Lorraine, etc. The way she did it, there were other breakthrough moments within the women's tournament. I thought Veronica Ihas's finishing was some of the best you will ever see. Just ridiculous. Tori Kewish was superb. Kirsty Hutchinson, Rhiannon O'Sullivan, great to see Rhiannon back playing the game of darts as well. But Beau is so far above everybody else at this level right now. She is the closest thing, I think, in terms of titles won that will ever get near Phill Taylor's record of 16. I genuinely think she's that good right now. I appreciate Trina's got 10. But in terms of women's world championship titles, Beau Greaves could go and get 15.
There needs to be some lifestyle changes for that to happen.
I agree.
Otherwise, it is not going to end well from what we've seen this week. Read between the lines what you will. However, if that doesn't change, it will be a short career.
I agree on that side, but I also think that was a little bit of a coping mechanism to get over the line the first time, to get rid of that pressure.
And that may be the case, but it's now adapting to it not being a permanent fixture and it being easing off to then meet that middle ground of what needs to be and what she was at. To some of the levels were just Kirsty hit the nail on the head. To be honest, Kirsty was fantastic all week, but she hit the nail on the head by saying there's not many men in the Dame who could have competed with her early on, so she was just outstanding. We talked about Veenstra in that performance. Beau in the early couple of sets was outrageous with some of the levels, but I agree with you, Phill, in the sense of that long term. But she's got time to learn. She's only 18. She's got time to learn, and hopefully she does and make the right choices, because then I do 100% agree with Dob that she could go on and lift ridiculous amounts of titles across both the WDF and the PDC. If she decides that she wants to split her time across the both, she could go and challenge Fallon, Lisa, Matura, who are probably your top ones, Rianne, for all those titles. So she's an amazing talent.
But there's no question she can play. No question that she is absolutely brilliant. But my worry is it's going to go the same way as Andy Fordham did. That he couldn't remember his biggest day of his career, biggest day of his life in a darting sense. All he ever remembered was flashes and clicks from cameras. That was it. And we blasted.
Honestly, in terms of just outright talent, at her age, compared to every other female dart player on the planet,
I get that, God. But if you'd have been there,
5 years younger
I think you'd be seeing it a little bit different. If you'd have been there, I think you'd have been seeing it a little bit different. Forget darts. For just pure lifestyle, that's not good.
No,
I'll dispute it a bit, though, Phill, on the basis that
we are also seeing a change in lifestyle for a lot of the sport, and hopefully, in and around that environment, that will be seen by the camp and those around and those supporting and going, right, this is where we have to do it either this way or this way. But honestly, in terms of just action, throw-in, quality, mentality, there is nothing even remotely close to her in the women's game, even Fallon. Because this sounds horrible, but her throw it's like a man's throw. It's down straight down the action. It's just superb. She plays the game the way a man does.
I think really seen that. Trina Gulliver as well.
Trina Gulliver was so successful because she was the only one that really threw the same way that the men do in bringing the dart to the same place. She threw a straight barrel. Her extension was really, really good. It just mimics a lot of that, and that's because she started it so early.
Look, you know, you guys know my opinion that I'm not a fan of it in the sport, full stop. And it's the only way the sport goes to the next level is if it's eradicated.
Don't think that will ever happen.
No, I don't know. That's the only way that you take it to the next level in terms of getting big corporations in, and I'm talking big sponsors in. That's the only way it can go from where it is now. It's hitting the ceiling, to go through the ceiling to the next level as a sport, it needs to go.
I'm not convinced, but I understand. I understand your point on it, Phill. Phill, I do get your point on it. The only thing for me is she's got a time to adapt. It's not as if we're talking about her being the world champion at 13 and that's her lifestyle at the moment. She's 18, so I think there is time for that to happen. It just depends on what support. And I don't want us to over dispute this matter to take away what an absolutely fantastic week that she's just had to pick up her first world title, because some of the darts were incredible. So I don't want us to push it too far, because she deserves an awful lot of credit for the levels of performances we've seen this week. Just dropping one set in the horrible half of the draw that we was talking about. Yes, she didn't meet Matura, but still, she had difficult games near enough all the way through that, and no one got anywhere near her because of the quality she possessed. But this week,
yeah, look, we'll never agree on this one, but anyway, we won't. And we have got some words from Beau as well.
I'm loving it, to be honest. I came off stage and all I wanted to do was just, I don't know, it was one of the strangest feelings I've ever felt. I just feel so much. Knowing that I've done that now, I can just relax and enjoy my darts from now on, because no one can take that away from me. I've done it, it's there. Enough. What a feeling.
There we go. As well, we have the boys one. I must admit, I didn't see a lot of this one, Boise. So this one, Jules.
Yeah. Bradley was in control of this early on, went 2-0 in front. Charlie's big win was on Saturday, then Slayton. Obviously, he wanted to see that level and step up, but he just dropped a little from performance. But the atmosphere on that Saturday afternoon for Charlie into the over the line and then Slayton was a great win for him. But I think the experience, and yes, he didn't play in front of a crowd at Ali Pali when he lifted the JDC world title in December, but I think that experience got him over the line here comfortably in front. And what was very good about it, he's speaking to him afterwards, just disappointed with the way he played. Even though he's done to pick up a junior world title, he come off a little bit disappointed that he could have performed even better than what he did. But 71 average, like I said, very strong. Punished missed doubles from Charlie early on, and fair play to Bradley for lifting a second youth world title in less than 4 months. And we talked about Luke Littler, we talked about Leighton Benny, many more in there who are hitting ridiculous numbers week in, week out. So for Bradley to pick up 2 world titles deserves an awful lot of credit, and then we want to look out for the next few years with that experience, because it was a good. We had a little conversation about the crowd, but on Sunday they were very good, and so it was a good experience for both players as well. So well done to Bradley Rue for being a 2-time youth world champion.
And also in the girls one, it was Elena Cans who picked up her first one as well. Boise.
Again, I think it was experience that got her over the line. Averages are probably a bit unfair on this one, around the 52, because both of them played well in stages. It was just the nerves of doubles. We had a couple of legs where there was more than a handful of missed doubles from both players. But she played Luth at Milton Keynes in January, and once then it might have just been the experience of that got her over the line. I know she was practicing with Luth before this game, but she's going to be an amazing talent. Lorraine speaks very highly about her. Lorraine does a lot of mentoring, so with this one, she was always looked like she was going to take the win. Numbers were around the same because it was just down to the doubling and that little bit more experience got her there. But at 17, he's a talent, and she's going to be I believe, going to be competing on the women's series at parts this year, as well as she's going to be, like some of the others, mixing it across to both, hoping to get to Blackpool.
Yeah. We'll touch on that in a minute. It's an interesting bit around the women's series and scheduling. We'll come on to that one later on. But from the Lakeside, we will go to the Premier League. This one seems a long time ago now, boys, but we didn't have a live lounge, so we'll gloss over this one fairly quickly before we look at Leeds. Birmingham, not the best venue, Boise, was it?
No, it's flat. There's no atmosphere at all. It's really... It isn't great for it. I've mentioned it before. Obviously, the only reason I would keep it in Birmingham is just as how easy it is to get to for me. From a selfish point of view, as an arena, as a darting venue, it just doesn't perform any year. It never has done. And it was the same on night 8. I was lucky to be there, but there was no atmosphere in the crowd, and the Danes really didn't produce as well. The one semi-final between Wright and Clayton, and then Clayton performed the baton in his 2 games, but the players played to what the venue gave it, really, and it wasn't very good. The Porters were probably the worst quarterfinals I've seen. There wasn't a game that really stood out that had real much quality in there, so quite disappointing night for Premier League action.
Does anyone remember who predicted this lineup in the final then?
I remember the lineup, but you got the score wrong.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I got the finalists. You told me no chance. But I clipped it. It was on social media. You laughed at me. But you're not. I'm going full Nigel Farage. You laughed at me, but you're not laughing now.
So that was Birmingham. We'll gloss over that because it wasn't the best of night. But then night 9, we went to the First Director Arena in Leeds, and I've got to say, the worst internet in the history of media rooms. Oh my days!
Like Scotland, they're still on dial-up. They're in the 19th century still in Leeds.
My AOL dial-up was quicker than that. First of all, Gary Anderson didn't play, got the dreaded Rona, so he was out. Spoke to Dave Allen, head of the PDC media, and we asked him why 6-0 went one way but not the other. He said it was a decision that was made this year. It's something that they'll evaluate at the end of the tournament. So that might change next year. It's something that they're looking at. But first up, really, really good game. But we'll come on to Peter Wright more in a minute. Peter Wright was sensational in this game in the opener. Gob to beat Michael Smith 6-2, and it just genuinely was a damn good game.
Yeah, and after he had a stinker of a first leg, didn't he? And I was like, what on earth is he doing with those darts? Because he rocked up with the Simon Whitlocks, and then he produces that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you can throw with them darts if you want. And then he mentions the fact that Joe told him not to play with those darts, and all of a sudden we can see why in the following round. But yeah, look, that quarterfinal was one of the better, comfortably one of the better opening performances we've seen from anybody in the Premier League campaign so far.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then obviously Michael got a 6-0 walkover. Joe Cullen, Johnny Clayton. This was one-sided, Boise, and Joe's struggling right now.
To be honest, I'm going to have to delve very much Dobbs' way of Lakeside final and say I didn't see a Premier League dart. Obviously, I was at Lakeside, so I didn't see one single thing. So, Dobb, this is all over to you, my friend. I know you only threw one game, but I'm throwing 6 your way. No, 5 your way, because you've already done one.
Uno reverse. Phil, I'm going to have to ask you, because I was on the train, mate.
Because I was paying attention, wasn't it? Yeah, no.
I did a fallout bar with Cam in the hotel room after seeing 6 darts.
Yeah, Joe, you could see
What?
he was trying to put on a show. This was his home night, and you could see he was trying too hard in this one. It didn't happen, and the ferret ran riot.
The good thing is, Phil, we did say these 12 days were going to be absolutely hectic. Between the three of us, we have saw every dart. We just haven't saw every dart each of us.
Yeah. The final game was interesting, and I don't know again what you guys saw of this one, but if you said to me wading, it was this game. Gerwyn Price was better in every department apart from the scoreline. That's the important one. That Wadey wins it 6-5. I don't know how. I think Gezi put on his Instagram that's what James Wade does, which will be interesting. But yeah, Wadey got the job done, and we had a semi-final. I'm not going to lie,
he put a bit more on that on his Instagram, didn't he? It was quite a polite one.
Yeah.
And then he backed it up by going, yeah, screenshot and put that everywhere. So I was like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, but to be fair, I quite like that. Because everyone screenshots his Instagram. So now he's done a positive one and a nice one. He's like, go on, screenshot that one. There you are. I'm quite a fan of that one.
I did, and we did put it on the show, but yeah.
Yeah. Kieran will come on to the World Series lineup. Don't worry, I have that all clipped up, ready to go. Look, the first semi-final, I'm not going to lie, was bloody awful. And this is Peter Wright.
Darts, basically.
And this is Peter Wright in a nutshell. Outstanding one game, fell off a cliff in the next one. MvG's beating him 6-3 with a 90 average. Look, Michael wasn't good, but got away with one. The fact that Peter just didn't turn up. And in the second semi-final, again, not much between them, just the one breaker throw that James managed to find, and that went his way. The final, on the other hand, Michael Van Gogh was outstanding. And
one breaker throw went to Clayton miscounted, by the way. I nearly forgot that on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Counting is not good. It's not good enough for a potentially top 4 player. Phill Taylor got away with it in an era where it didn't make a lot of difference. But the percentage shots, leaving yourself them outside finishes, etc., he just needs to take a second and ask the referee, unless it's Ross Bray.
Yeah. And then the final, Wayne said it in comms, it was almost vintage Michael Van Gogh. The checkouts, the combinations were going nearly 104 average. He absolutely battered Wade in the final. It was another final for James Wade job, but didn't quite get there.
No, and this is probably the flattest of the 3 that he's been in. The other ones you could have said there was an opportunity, but look, if he keeps accumulating finals and he's there or thereabouts come finals day in the table, that there is a table because this is a league as well as a knockout every week. Let's not forget that. Bizarre. If he keeps accumulating finals the way he is, it's not great. He keeps losing them, but he'll be more than happy of keep just accumulating points, doing what he does, picking off players when they're not at their best. And when you get to that semi-final and final, there's a far greater opportunity to do that more consistently. This format does not suit James Wade at all. There's a reason he hasn't got an extensive list of European Tour titles or European Championships, a massive amount of UK Opens, etc. Because the amount of times that you play on the same day, the amount of games you play back to back to back. Because once people are going deep, they're in good form 9 times out of 10. Apart from Johnny Clayton, when he makes a final, he seems to drop off a little bit. But everybody else, by the time they're reaching a final, they've played 2 games, they're feeling good about it. And you can't take advantage of somebody that feels good about themselves unless something goes massively wrong.
MvG wins his 3rd Premier League night, boys, and the top 2, I think, are definitely done in the Premier League. I don't think they'll be caught. I think Peter Wright is almost there. Are we just playing for one spot?
No.
No, not yet.
I still No, I think MVG won their tour. I think the other three still can. It only takes Johnny or Peter to have a couple of weeks of first round defeats, and then that bunch closes again.
Yeah, but my problem is at the moment
they're in very strong positions.
The ones outside the top four, I only see Gezi winning back-to-back nights. The others might win a night, and I think the others are just collectively get enough points.
Yeah, but I think the others to do what James...
The ones that are in that top four in the first round, chances are they've still got to play every single one of them in some capacity.
The likes of Joe Cullen, Michael Smith could easily have the run that James Wade is having. Maybe not picking up titles week on week, but getting to the back end of the nights. So I don't think it's just that one spot just yet. But I think Michael's safe. Michael's playing too well to drop from there as well, so we'll play quite a few more. But I'm not quite sure on Clayton, Wright and Wade. Or Clayton and Wright, as you're saying here.
The issue the rest of the field are going to have is if, like you say, Gerwin Price does go back-to-back, and the top three, or within the top three, or top four, are Michael Van Gerwen, Peter Wright, and Gerwin Price. Because at some point, at least two of them, well, there can only be at least two, but for every single week, two of them are in the opposite halves of the draw, which means it's possible for them to go deep and knock everybody else out on the way.
Yeah.
Which is an issue.
So,
we've said that before.
Before we look at this week, a lot of chat or more chat on social media this week. I think the bubble may have burst now. We said how long will it last? That this week was the first week I'd seen more and more comment about people at home. Look, Dan was there. I don't know if Dan's in the chat room or listening, but Dan was there. For the fan in the venue, it will be great for every night. But the fan now watching at home, I think may be done with it because we've seen the same games over and over.
Yeah, I felt that experience in Birmingham, the first Premier League night I've done to this year, and from a night spectacle, obviously the darts wasn't there, the atmosphere was, but the tournament feel of it, being in there, I did enjoy. It'd be wrong for me to say I didn't. However, when I'm watching it week on week, I do tend to have that feel, and as Dob sort of jokingly said, there is still a league table. You do a little bit for that about it. It will get talked about the last few weeks, as the points will be a lot more important. But yeah, I've never, when we've done the live, was it the live stream when the Premier League statement come out? Even when I was reading the statement, I wasn't convinced it was the right thing to do. I'm still not. I've spoken to a few people this week. Nitho's got some ideas on what it should be. A few of the others have got some ideas on what it should be. But there is other people who agree with it, like Murph. I'm sure if he was on here, Murph would say that he fully buys into it and he thinks it's been a very good concept. So there is still more of them. I think there's less to agree with it.
To be fair, you couldn't have timed that much better, because before we move on and look at this week, as if by magic, I'll tell you what, you're good at this, Boise.
I didn't know he was there. I didn't know he was there.
Introducing the man himself. Murph is in his hotel room in Southampton. How are we doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, thanks. I fully buy into whatever you were just talking about and think it's worked very well.
No, I don't know how much you heard of that, but we were saying for the fan in the venue, it is genuinely brilliant. But this week, just gone on social media, was the first time that we'd seen the fan at home going, I'm a little bored with these games now.
Yeah, I get that, and I've seen that a few times, to be fair. But the thing is, for me, I don't see how you can be more bored with the games now than you could be before, when it was just a league phase, when it literally was just the same 8 players playing each other twice over the course of the season. I still think it's more exciting this way.
Yeah, no, look, it's an interesting one, and it splits opinion. But fresh off Lakeside, mate, you must be.
One thing I will say, Phill, is just I heard Gob saying, remember there is the league phase as well, and actually that's a fair point, because I haven't paid any attention to the league table at all. I've literally just watched it every week like it's a standalone night.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Fresh off the back of Lakeside, mate, we spoke about it. You must be over the moon with the way it went for you personally and as a tournament as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm human, so I was a little bit anxious going into it. Obviously, just my second TV gig after the seniors, which I think actually really served me well. Lakeside was meant to come first, but obviously then it got delayed. And yeah, I thought I was really happy with how it went. I was really pleased with the people that I worked with. I loved working with Tony O'Shea. But there are a couple of people that I just wanted to mention who made the debuts in commentary, and I thought were both fantastic, were Glenn Durrant and Lorraine Winstanley. I thought they were absolutely brilliant to work with, and both have a future if they want it. I really believe that. So yeah, the people that you work with make it easy for you. Wasn't easy the first couple of days. There was a lot of matches, doing the commentary and the post-match interviews, but it was easier than cleaning windows, which is what I used to do, so I'm not going to moan about that. But yeah, all in all, I thought the production, there were a couple of issues, but the production was really well, and by the end of the week it felt like a proper Lakeside tournament again.
What was have you got a standout moment or a couple that really spring to mind from it?
From a selfish point of view, it was just such an honour to commentate on Beau's first World Championship win, that winning moment, a history-making moment, being the youngest ever player to win the World Championship. So for a selfish point of view, that was kind of my highlight. I think the best game that I commentated on, the favourite game to commentate on, was Jim McEwen against Neil Duff. That big comeback win, because we just kind of built this narrative in commentary where McEwen just could not miss double top. I think he was 7 out of 7, and then he missed it for the match, and the rest was history. It just all sort of unravelled from there. So it was a really gripping and engaging game. I'm not going to lie, sometimes you commentate on a match and someone's 3-0 up and you kind of just want them to win the next set because the game's not really fantastic and you don't feel like the other player can get back into it. But that one, it just felt like it could really ignite. So we were more than happy to sit there through another 4 sets because the game just completely gripped us. So yeah, for me, I think that was the favourite match and the favourite moment.
Not sure Jim will thank you for that because he does watch them sometimes.
Yeah, I'll say Jim does watch as well, which is.
I saw Jim afterwards. He went through to Barnsley, didn't he?
Yeah. Just a couple of bits on the tournament as well, Murph. Looking at it as a whole, do you think the forced change into the new date suits it better, or do you think the week in January works better for the tournament?
Difficult to say. I don't know what the viewing figures were yet, but I think that it seemed to come across well on TV. But we all know that it wasn't very well attended for most of the week. So I think the big thing is getting the fans in, and we know that it used to be well attended in January, but we don't know if it still would be. That's a bit of an unknown. So yeah, I think it's difficult. I think I'm still sort of 50-50 on it. I think for the players, obviously, having it in January is not great. If it's going to clash with Q School, it doesn't really work. If there was ever any sort of work together where they said, look, you've got 9 days to have your tournament after the World Championship finishes with no crossover and no crossover of Q School, then that might be quite nice. But I think that's the only way it could really work in January. But it's probably going to come down to what the broadcasters want at the end of the day. But I don't think... I think it could sit where it's at. I think it's, it was a decent time. I know it's gone up against the Premier League and a couple of Pro Tour events and stuff, but that's better for me than overlapping with the quarterfinals, semi-final, World Championship, which is what it was going to do initially.
Yeah, no, completely. I'm with you on that one. looking ahead for you as well. World Seniors on the horizon. The gigs are coming thick and fast, and the support that you've received from people like Wayne Mardle, you must be over the moon with that. And are you looking forward to heading back to Lakeside for the seniors?
Yeah, that was really nice of Wayne, and other people have, messaged me privately as well. There's a lot of people in the sport and in the industry that have helped me a lot with advice. Wayne's one of them, Rod Studd, other people as well. Dan Dawson, obviously, a good friend of mine. They just, everyone's been really encouraging and really helpful. And it's really nice for them to do that, and then to give me such public praise afterwards. I'm really grateful for. Really looking forward to the seniors. In a way, it's an easier event to commentate on because you know so much about all the players, or the vast majority of them. So it's kind of just checking things are correct rather than actually doing in-depth research pre-game, pre-match. But of course, the live league has really helped me ahead of Lakeside as well, because a good chunk of the players have played in that, including the 2 finalists. So I think that's really helped. I'm here this week, so I'm looking forward to the seniors, looking forward to the live league. I think I've got 3 Euro Tours next month, Pro Tour, a women's series between now and the end of next month as well. So the women's series as well would be interesting if Beau enters, because that'll create a bit of a stir with Fallon and Lisa playing in an event as well. So just looking forward to everything. I never ever thought that darts commentating could be a full-time job, but that's what it's turned into. So absolutely living the dream.
On the live league, it is Champions Week, and what a Champions Week it is as well. Arguably one of the strongest that we've ever had. Josh Payne last week, obviously winning week 4, and it's going to be an absolute belter of a week to call, Murph.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The week that I did was that week where it was Robert Owen against Mike Warburton, kind of in an all-week battle, and a lot of people fancied Mike to go and win at Lakeside. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs, because there may be a bit of a deflation there, having not maybe gone and done what Neil or Thibaut have done, but some great players. James Richardson's always a good one to watch at the live league. Josh Payne, when he's on it, has been really good, and I think the last week we saw him sustain that standard for much longer. When previously. You still got me?
Yeah, I've still got you, mate.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the first time Josh Payne was in it, he was really good at the start of the week and then tailed off. But last time, it's like he got used to it and sustained that standard. So I think he'll certainly be one to watch. Really looking forward to this week. It's always a bit easier on Champions Week because all the players are usually playing at a reasonably high standard.
Yeah, absolutely. Murph, I say, we don't want to keep you too long, mate. I know you're getting ready and prepping for an early start in the morning, but pleasure to have you jump on, mate, and just talk about your Lakeside experience and everything like that, mate. And I'll see you maybe tomorrow, if not Wednesday.
Yeah, nice one. I just want to say well done to Lee as well. I know it was his first time you let him fly solo, and he represented you well, did a good job, so well done, Lee.
He did, mate. Absolute pleasure, buddy. Thank you very much.
Take care, guys.
Always a pleasure having Murph on. Good to get his thoughts, boys. Moving back, though, we do head to the AO Arena in Manchester. And we all know what's coming from here. Let's run through this week's night in the Premier League. First up, Peter Wright against Gerwin Price-Gobb. And this is a tough game to call at the best of times. Normally, because the Worlds 1 and 2 are playing some decent stuff. But this time around, it's the opposite reason. We don't know which version of each player we're going to get.
We've seen more glimpses from Peter in the last couple of weeks, I think. There was a blip of a couple of weeks where it was not great from him average-wise, but that level of performance is gradually rising, especially in the earlier rounds. The later the night goes on, perhaps not so much. Gezi says his hand is a lot better. He's not gone berserk for a few weeks. The first week when he had that hand injury, he did, but ever since then, I think since he found out it was actually fractured rather than he thought it was a sprain or just a small injury or whatever, I think that's been in the back of his mind a little bit. And it's very easy to not give it 100%, thinking that if I throw this with as much force as I would normally, I might do a little bit more damage sort of thing. So I think there's been a little bit of tentative in the way that Gezzy's played the last couple of weeks in particular. He says he's back, but I'd still want to give him this isn't the game that you'd want after saying that you feel good and your hand's all good, etc. So I've got snakebite in this one.
You, Boise?
Yeah, I'm with Dob. I think Peter Wright just edges past him. I'm still concerned a bit about Peter Wright and the levels of consistency, but I think in this one he does get over the line.
I'm going the other way. I'm going Gezzy to nick it. I just think, again, I can make cases for and against both players, but I'm just going to edge towards the Iceman. Chat room, come and get involved as well. Let's have your score predictions for the quarterfinals. Game number 2, Boise. We'll presume, or we're hoping, that Gary Anderson is okay to play. There's been no statement from the PDC or anything as of yet, so we'll take it as if he's back this week. But right now, you'd make Wade favourite, or I would anyway.
Yeah, I think even Anderson missing last week, Wade would probably be favourite, obviously with back-to-back finals, in addition with how Gary Anderson's been performing, then adding to the fact that he's missed a week. If Gary is right and Michael isn't, it means that Gary won't have picked up a dart for 2 weeks because he don't practice, is the words of Gary Anderson. So if that's the case, then James Wade definitely comes into this as favourite. And I have him winning, but not convincingly. I still think it'll be close, but I think Wade gets over the line around 6-4.
You backing your boy, Gob?
They're both. Don't give me that, but yeah,
Which
look,
one?
I think Gary ill last week. Wadey just playing that much better. Look, Gary went berserk for 1 week, didn't he? But other than that, we haven't really seen the best of Gary Anderson in this Premier League. I think he's probably a little bit more comfortable than that as well. 6-2 maybe for James.
Yeah, I think Wadey wins it. 6-3, 6-4, somewhere around there. We'll answer that one in a minute about the WDF players and the Grand Slam. We'll do that in the question bit at the end. MvG Johnny Clayton, Gob. Now, this one intrigues me because it all seems to be right. The first game, Michael starts a little bit slow, and this might be the one chance that you have to get him.
Potentially. We've seen better signs from Johnny the last couple of weeks in the Premier League as well. Van Goen is still offering up opportunities. He is, and his action still doesn't look 100%. Yes, he's winning. Yes, he's capable of banging in his 100, 304, but he's exerting so much more effort in his action to do it. You look when he's chucking 180s last week. First 2 in, that third one, there's a lot of shoulder, there's a lot more pushing off on it than we're used to seeing from Van Goen. And I think if you can get at him and put him under pressure, there is still the opportunity to do some damage on him. So I'm going to say Johnny Clayton next week.
Boise?
So, when I was doing the preview last week, I looked at a little trend of MvG from week 5, which has seen him go final, lose first round, final, lose first round, final last week. So for me, I'm going to follow that trend and go with Johnny Clayton. The reason I'm laughing is that's now 3 out of 3, where I'm following Gob with the same pick, but I was always down to go with Clayton because of that reason. So yeah, for no other reason other than that trend that MvG seem to have set that he'll win a week or get to a final in a week and then lose the following one. So Johnny Clayton's thumb for it. Sorry, Gob.
I'm going MvG, but only the reason he has the darts. I think it's 6-5. If it was the other way, if Clayton was throwing first, I'd have gone for Clayton. Because again, I think it'll be 6-5. So purely because MvG has the darts, I'm going for Michael. Final game, Joe Cullen against Michael Smith. Boise, the Rockstar needs a reaction, but will we see one?
Yes, we will. I think Joe comes through it. We need a performance from him. We've not seen one for quite a few weeks now in the Premier League, and I think we will see one this Thursday against Michael Smith. I've seen get him over the line about halfway as well on the Nadal. 6-3.
For you, Gob?
Finally got one opposite. Michael Smith wins this one.
you just doing that because I said Joe. If I'd have said Michael, you'd have done Joe.
No, look, I don't think Michael Smith has been terrible the last few weeks. He's ran into a couple of good performances. He's been a little bit unfortunate. Even in losses, his average and performance, I think, has been better than what we've seen from Joe Cullen. Even though Joe Cullen has won a week, he did so with a tournament average of about 90. Michael Smith's losing with a running average for the last 5-6 weeks of about 94, 95. I just think Smith's at that higher level right now. He's been there before in this position as well, whereas Joe hasn't really. And I know the format's different a little bit, but in terms of playing in those on that big stage, etc., I just think Smith's got just that little bit of an edge on him. I'm going to say 6-4, just the one break.
Yeah, I'm with Gob. I'm going for Michael Smith in this one. So, chat room as well. From your predictions, I'd like your winner and your runner-up, please. Going to you first, Boise.
Why? I'm going to go for Peter Wright wins the night. I don't know why. Peter Wright wins the night and he beats Johnny Clayton in the final.
Gob.
For the second week in a row, I'm predicting Michael Smith beats James Wade in the final.
I am going Gerwyn Price beats Michael Van Gerwen in the final.
Yeah, but you're doing some reverse psychology on James Wade, that hoping if you keep putting him in the final to lose, one time he'll turn up and win in that final.
Not really. Just how I see it. If Johnny is going to beat Michael, which I think he is, I think it's going to take a lot of effort to do so. Michael is still playing well. Johnny's going to have to produce something pretty good against the darts, as Phill said, to beat him. I think Michael Smith comes through a little bit more comfortably, raises the gear instead of having to struggle against Clayton before that. I think Snakebite beats Gezi, but we've seen him do massive drop-off between... There's a long time between playing first and then playing that first semi-final as well. So it's very easy to go hot or cold in between that. I think Wadey will adapt to that a little bit better, do what he does, and then run out of steam in the final again.
Yeah. So Malachi's got MvG to beat Wright in the final. Adrian's got Wade to beat Smith. Kieran, Clayton to win Van Gerwen Price runner up. Luke says Price to beat Clayton. James says MvG to beat Price. Big Johnny says Clayton Wright, like we haven't seen that game 647 times. Paul Wade wins Cullen's second. Good stuff. I know we're rattling through tonight because we've got loads and loads from the Premier League. We go to the Pro Tour. We've got 5 of them to absolute smash through. Seems a long time ago, gents, that Danny Hansen wins Pro Tour 9 and his first.
Hang on, I've got Euro Tour qualifiers open first. Yeah, look, that was a bizarre day as well, I thought. Danny Hansen beating Andrew Gilden. It just went their way a lot, didn't it? Andrew Gilden, I thought, was superb despite just his little quirks. I don't enjoy watching it. But, yeah, look, to win your first Pro Tour title. He's 19?
Yeah.
To go and do that just out of nowhere. Solid.
This also, Phill, was the when we was talking about the highlights of sort of the 12 days, this was the one for me. I know I touched upon it briefly at the start, but to see Glenda over the line in a couple of results, a couple of tight games, beating Tony Martinez, I believe, in the first one. I can't remember who the second win was against. Dimitri, and was around that mid-80s that we haven't seen really from Glenn. Was a lot better. He was feeling a lot confident. As I said, briefly seen him at Lakeside. So it was good seeing that a win, but yeah, the day went to Danny Hansen, and very strange final two in regards to, I don't think anyone in the world would have ever picked that as your final two on a Players' Championships with the players over there.
Yeah, but makes the match play race interesting. And then Players' Championship 10. This was weird, but weird good. That MvG picks up his second Pro Tour title of the year in the final. He was 4-0 down to Peter Wright Gob, and then to run off 8 legs in a row is bizarre, to say the least.
Yeah, especially as we were sat here discussing that leg 5. We're going, if Van Gerwen doesn't win this, there's such a gap between them right now that there is a real danger that Peter Wright whitewashes Michael Van Gerwen in a PDC Players' Championship final. Out of nowhere, he's just like, nah, not happening. And he didn't quite look the same player for a large. Van Gerwen got a couple of easy legs to get back into it, I think, where there wasn't a lot of resistance coming back the other way. It's almost as if Peter started thinking about it a little bit or thought it was job done. Michael, 8 in a row against the world number 1 is pretty good at the best of times. Another Pro Tour title for him. Goes joint top with Joe Cullen on titles won this year, I believe.
Yeah. Not bad for someone that's finished.
It's not finished. He's from Holland.
Obviously, then we go on. Ryan Searle adds another title, beats Nathan Aspinall. Spoiler alert, we'll come on to this in a minute. But it was good to see the Asp back playing well and getting to the final, first of all, Boise, without spoiling what happened this weekend. Yeah,
it is. Does that also mean that Ryan Searle has qualified for Blackpool? Are we starting that then? Or is it is good to see that. I guess with Asp, because all the talk was about that he might need to have an ARP, it would be out for a long period of time. And we all sort of said that it was probably the right thing for him to come and do about now, because then he could be back for the end of the year. What we're seeing is obviously that he's proving us run very much and putting in those performances that are getting him to a final. And obviously, as you mentioned, this weekend going on and win it. But yeah, fantastic run by Nathan. But Ryan Searle secures his place at Blackpool with an 8-3 win.
Yeah, just looking at 2 results there as well. Josh Rock beating Gerwin Price in the last 16 and getting to the quarter-final. Is he developed, Gob?
Get me started. Did I stream this day?
Yeah.
No, this was last Sunday.
Yeah.
I do not remember that final at all. I don't remember the final at all. I don't remember Ryan Searle winning the title.
It's been a long week. Moving on to this weekend, Players' Championship 12. And to be fair, Dirk Van Duijvenbode was almost unplayable on Saturday. I think he had an average of 101 for the day, which across a Pro Tour is good stuff, Boise, in there.
Yeah, it was one because I didn't follow the days. Obviously, I was at a wedding on a Saturday, so I got a bit of jit for it because it wasn't on a Monday. But yeah, looking back at this, and we were speaking about it, I think it was yesterday, Phill, just that the standard that Dirk put in across the day to average 101 will be up there across, when you look at the year, is probably one of the best daily performances we will see. It's just incredible numbers throughout, and Ryan Searle bat at it and then bat in a final. But another one, question marks have been there for Dirk. We've seen how well he played behind closed doors. Obviously, this is also behind closed doors, but because his TV competitions haven't been to the standards that he'd set last year, these are the performances in the days that he needs to help him build that confidence. So when he's doing on the stage, we might see that level as well. But an all-round great day for Dirk.
Yeah,
I had a conversation with Mace on Sunday, actually.
Go on.
After Mace had been knocked out, he said he actually thought that Dirk needed this a little bit, in that he had such a great tournament at the Grand Prix, hadn't quite backed it up the way that he would have hoped, and actually this run, this day, this performance just reignites that a little bit, saying, actually, I have got the game, I can go through the best players in the world, I can produce it when I need it, and how much more important it was for Dirk to win this title than Ryan Searle on that day.
Yeah, also another couple of bits from this day before we move on. One, Jose Justicio is having a very good start to having a tour card back, I've got to say. Even when he's losing, he got to the quarterfinals on Saturday, but even when he's losing, he's putting in some big numbers. Good to see Justicia back, but the most notable thing was the quarterfinal lineup. We had 3 baggy greens in the last 8, Gob. Good times for Australian darts. Mathers, Whitlock and Heta all in the last 8.
Yeah, it's almost like they knew there was an announcement coming.
Don't worry, we'll come on in a minute.
Not that he's definitely did it, but no, much needed run for Simon Whitlock. He's been one that is struggling a little bit of late. Not to the same sort of extent that a really good run this weekend was essential for John Henderson, but definitely one that you're looking at in the same sort of category as a Murph King, as an Adrian Lewis, that have been top 16, top 32, that aren't quite producing it as regularly as they have done in the past. So a good run for Simon Whitlock. Gordon Mathers, the weekend before, was ridiculously good, throwing ton plus averages all over the shop. And it is only a matter of time before Damon Heta wins many, many titles. He looks very, very good. His scoring has gone up a level since we've seen him in the PDC. His finishing, I think, is top-notch anyway. Plays at a good pace for himself. That might upset the odd player. It's not rapid. It doesn't allow a Van Gerwen or an Anderson to get into their groove fully, but it's not massively slow that they're like, oh, for God's sake, can't wait. It's just steady, consistent, and he's very, very good.
And the final Players' Championship of the weekend was Players' Championship 13. Nathan Aspinall ends a 2-year wait for a title. He wins, but so pleased for him, but so many other stories as well. Matt Campbell making a final. He was sensational as well. Martin Lukeman, a quarterfinal. Scott Waits, a quarterfinal. It was all going on, Boise, here, and so pleased that the Asp is back.
Yeah, and then I saw the early start of the day, but the back end of it, I wasn't able to see the final. But one thing I have watched is the interview that Asp had afterwards, and you could just tell with that how much it meant to Nathan just to be back in winner's circle, whether it be on TV or a Pro Tour. After getting to the final as well previous week, just getting over that line will be a massive boost for him. And for Matt Campbell, is probably one we've spoke highly about and hasn't really hit the levels we've expected at times. So to see him now get into a final and a Pro Tour, hopefully now we'll see him get into the back end even more, because he's another player with incredible talent, who should be challenging more in Pro Tour events, and then pushing on to see what he can do on TV. So, yeah, all round great final to see these two in there. But I am chuffed, as I'm a huge fan of Nathan Aspinall, so to see him pick up a title after just missing out the previous week, I think it's great news, not only for himself but for darts, because when he's at his best, is one for me who should be in the Premier League when he's playing, as we've seen before.
Real standout for Matt Campbell as well, God. We saw how good he can be on the Challenge Tour and in the World Cup, and now making that transition.
Yeah, definitely. I think his action's very, very good as well. It's just solid, straight down the line, and to start delivering on that. When you start making these one final, two finals, going deep a couple of times, that gives yourself that little bit more belief that you belong and you can compete at this level. And that's exactly what Matt Campbell did and needed to do. Just a bit of a wider. I didn't watch the weekend. Do you think that, from an average wise, just looking at the numbers as I flick down the screen, this Sunday isn't quite as high as perhaps we saw for the last 5 days that we've covered of Pro Tour? Do you think that's the result of 3 Pro Tours last weekend, 2 European qualifiers, and 2 Pro Tours again this weekend? Sunday afternoon, as you start lagging on, players just want to get home after back-to-back weekends, etc. Are we concerned that the more that we continue to push to grow the tour, the more the standard will struggle a bit?
I think I agree with you. I think it is a combination of that, but I also think that it's at a crossroads now where players are going to have to make a decision. And I understand what Gob's probably going to say, that if they don't win, they don't earn money, which, again, I do think needs looking at. But it's meant to be a professional tour. That's what Barry and Matt will say. We're giving you opportunities to play. These are your dates. And players are now going to have to start making the choice, because I think it is becoming harder and harder to work full-time and do the tour full-time.
I think it is, but they're also asking people to commit to that in a time, particularly in the UK, where it has never been more expensive to live.
Yeah, I agree.
The jump now, relative to 10, 12 years ago, is so much bigger, despite darts not really changing an awful lot. It's growing, etc. But in terms of how much money these guys need to earn from the sport to be able to be comfortable with all the travelling they need to do, the hotels, to live away from the hockey, etc. It's so much more of a bigger risk to make that jump now than it was 10, 20 years ago to say, I'm going to go full-time at this, I'm going to go pro at this. Getting exhibitions is so much more difficult now. There isn't quite the demand for it like there used to be, because we see the players so often, so frequently. A lot of players recycle the same sort of sponsorship deals, etc. We're still waiting on that big, apart from Kazoo, really, that non-gambling or alcohol sponsorship to come along for darts and really ignite the blue chip investment into the sport. And yeah, I just think there's that little bit of a just waiting for to ask the players to make that jump. I think at the minute is quite significant, unless they restructure the prize money, they restructure the rankings, so it's not a 2-year money list the way that it is. There is a basic earning for every event that you turn up at, which, look, I'm not saying that it should be Q score and bang, you're set for 2 years, because then there is the argument that there is less motivation for the players to achieve at a level and just turn up for 2 years, collect their check off the back of 1 week and be absolutely done with it. And I think that's probably the PDC's argument as to why they don't have a minimum earning. But if you want to make that jump to a professional tour, you can't be saying, well, if you don't win, it's your fault. You sort of
the thing is, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me next year
these people to make that jump right now
to see more Pro Tours midweek. It genuinely wouldn't.
It wouldn't surprise me either. And like I said, they have to look at restructuring either the first round prize money or the way that the rankings work, just to make that accessible for people, because this is Players' Championship 13. This leads me on really nice, actually. This is Players' Championship 13 of the year already. 6 of them have been played with at least a bye.
Yeah.
And considering the Challenge Tour structure top-up, etc., that isn't good enough. And I appreciate players can pull out at the very, very last minute, and sometimes it is completely unavoidable. But to play 6 tournaments, just under half of your core events, with a system that is inherently reliant on 1, 2, 8 turning up, to play half of them without a full field is not good enough.
Yeah. Joker is in the chat room. He says, my clothes don't even make it upstairs anymore. at home, empty the suitcase, back for Germany, I can sleep for a week. I know that feeling, mate. 100%. But we're going to move on because we've still got loads to pack in. Over to you, Gob.
Me? It's going to me? We're off to Reading, are we?
Yep. Mace wins the flyer on Friday.
Mace was very, very good on Friday. He started Friday night last time in Reading really well. He had a couple of 100 averages, lost out the round after that, I think, and then never really got going throughout the rest of the week. It was pretty much the same story. Look, you could see the improvements in the practices that Mace is putting in. Practice board, unbelievable. That Friday night, the flyer, it doesn't count for anything. It's just pretty much a warm-up event for players that want to arrive the night before, get used to the venue, which we've done a lot of work in reconfiguring, and I thought it worked really well, actually. But Mace's performances were superb to come through the field that he did that last Jenks, John Guy, and then Colin McGarry. He hit 8 of his last 9 darts at a double in those 3 matches. He missed a couple throughout the match against Jenks, but obviously he hits his last dart to win that one against Jenks. He goes 3 from 3 against Guy John, and he's 3 from 3 attempts against McGarry, and then he leaves 55, and that goes 15 outside tops. He would have been 8 from 8 in a row at doubles to round out the tournament. His finishing on the Friday night was ridiculously good, and it's not like single darts at double. It's combination finishes, as an 87 on the bullseye, I think, and whatever else. He was just, I'm not missing a dart at double. He was superb. It was. And chatting to him, I'm not sure if he's in tonight. He said he might be, might not, but he said he's playing better in practice than he was when he was a pro. He said he's doing things now that would have amazed him when he was making a living out of playing darts. And you can see that in his game. You can see that in a few other people's games, actually, that the seniors has kicked them into gear again once more, and they're rejuvenated and ready to go and give it a crack. Colin McGarry is a fantastic dart player, and the fact that he missed out by 5 margins once again, but he's been so consistent, he has to make one at some point. It would be an absolute crime if he goes this entire year without getting over the line. But yeah, just the standard overall is super.
Moving on to
Saturday, we move on. 2 debutants in the final, amazingly. First time we've seen Paul Hogan and David Cameron actually on the Friday night, and then on the Saturday arrived at the Crucible in Reading via Uber. He paid an absolute fortune in taxis both days to get here and back. He stayed at the Lakeside for the entire week of the WDF World Championship. He walked out of the venue, obviously having lost earlier on in the week, and he walked back in knowing that he was returning to the Lakeside earlier than pretty much the rest of the field did. There's a couple that were already qualified for next year. Beau Greaves at the WDF World Championships. But yeah, David Cameron has already guaranteed another trip to the Lakeside earlier than anybody else from that WDF field. And look, he was superb. You could tell that he'd just been in a World Championship. He was solid all day. He held his nerve when he needed it. Paul Hogan didn't really get going in that final, but I thought that David Cameron was absolutely superb. He just played a solid game. There wasn't anything ton plus exceptional about it, but it was just solid enough to come through the field that he beat Matt Clark, Phill Milburn, Rob Rickwood, and then Paul Hogan. Rob Rickwood, since he's joined the seniors tour from Newbury, I think it was, he's been in quarterfinals or better every single time. He can't be too far away either. Superb from David Cameron, and I think that'd be interesting to add another Canadian to the tour. I spoke to him afterwards. He's going to attempt to do some CDC stuff, come back over, wants to play and try and make it to the World Seniors World Championship as well as an absolute minimum, but hopefully this will inspire him to make the trip for the match play as well. Be interesting to see the double Canadian dynamic as well, because John Park will be involved.
Then Sunday.
Then final day, yeah. This is where it all gets a little bit edgy as well, because not only do we have the outright qualifier qualify for the Lakeside, we also had the Order of Merit leader. So throughout the day we're watching, there was only 4 that could still make it via the Order of Merit as play started on the Sunday. They were Richie House and Dave Prince, Colin McGarry and Mike Huntley. the winner of the Sunday event Open Series in Newbury. Mike Huntley fell pretty early, and then they were all handed pretty tough draws all at once. Dave Prinz going down 5-4 to Richard Ehrig. Richie Howson taking on Steve Hine, who obviously had been at the Lakeside earlier in the week, and Colin McGarry. The round afterwards is where his run gets really, really tough. Dave Prinz very, very nearly stayed in the tournament in the most spectacular fashion you've seen. He's 4-3 down to Richard Ehrig. He takes out 1-3-6 with Ehrig sat on a double to take it to 4 apiece. Ehrig then leaves another double in the deciding leg, and Prinz wires the bullseye for a 170 to win the match. He would have taken out 306 in back-to-back finishes from 4-3 down to stay alive in the tournament. But as that happened, Richie Howson moved ahead of him and put himself in absolute pole position. A win over Barry Bates pretty much got him there, but it was all down to leg difference on Colin McGarry's results. But as he kept going 5-4, 5-4, and then 6-5, it couldn't be done. So Richie Howson was confirmed as the order of merit qualifier. Talking of Colin McGarry, it was nearly done. It was nearly wrapped up in the last 16. It would have just been the outright winner, and Richie Howson 4 apiece of Brian Dawson. Dawson leaves double 8. McGarry's on 150. He goes, scores a ton. Dawson misses 3 from double 8. McGarry returns to take out 50. Absolutely superb. Does very, very similar against Matt Clark in the following matchup. Clark misses bullseye for 161 to beat McGarry, and he survives again in the deciding leg. But it wasn't to beat against Wayne Jones in the semi-finals. The Northern Irishman narrowly missing out. If he'd made the final, it would have been very, very close. But yeah, Wayne Jones returns to televised darts. I joked around with him in his interview. That will be out a little bit, probably tomorrow now, actually. A bit late to go now. But it'll be out tomorrow afternoon at some point, just his post-match thoughts and reactions, that he normally makes a habit of qualifying for the Grand Slam, but he's hoping to make a habit of qualifying for the World Seniors events from now.
Moving on, we are going to go into Fergie time. Don't worry, guys. We will get everything covered. We knew it was going to be a bumper show, trying to get 2 weeks.
Oh, I love that look from Lee every week, as if to say, we need to pre-book Fergie time.
No, to be fair, we know it's safe. His missus don't land till 11 o'clock. We've got that sorted.
Sean Neal, shouldn't have told you.
The PDC dropped this one today, and it caused a bit of a stir on social media, gents. Don't get me wrong, Gob already told the world 2 weeks ago, but the World Series lineup...
I didn't do anything. What are you talking about?
is complete. The Amsterdam Masters finishes off the World Series, and when this poster dropped, Darts Twitter went into meltdown again, boys.
Yeah, and it's stupid because look, the Premier League, you can sit and argue with all you want because that is regarded in a higher standard and level. And when you're sat there telling us that the players would rather win it, that's where I've got an issue with players being invited in this conversation being brought up a few months ago. The World Series of Darts is a travelling exhibition to market the sport and the best players in the home countries of venues and nations that the PDC hope to become the next emerging markets. Taking Fallon Sherrick there, who had already been selected for this before the World Series got shut down previously, makes sense. She is the most marketable female darts player in the world, or certainly was at the time of this announcement. Beau Greaves could definitely be in that conversation very, very soon as well. But look, Fallon's achievements in the PDC at the minute take her beyond that. Deserves her spot there. Get on with it. The issue I've got is, why on earth are we going to Amsterdam? The finals are already there. And it is not a nation that needs help emerging.
I can tell you why.
Money.
Because they put up the money. And no one else. Like Barry's always said, I will do a World Series.
But if they're doing that, put up the money for more Euro tours and stop there being 6 million in Germany. We do not need two World Series events. They've already got the finals. They either want a World Series event earlier on so they can invite the players that they want, or they want the finals. You don't need 2 World Series events there. Australia and New Zealand makes sense because you can put 3 within 14 days in that area of the world. There isn't really anywhere else close to that. Australia is a lot bigger, covers a lot more area around the coast to get to various places and take the sport to people. You don't need two in a country the size of Holland.
But if they're paying the money, they'll get them. If no one else is willing to pay it,
then don't put one there. Look, I completely understand why we go to Gibraltar on the Euro Tour. It's a waste of time on a Thursday afternoon, on a Friday afternoon in particular. But I completely understand why we're there. But look, for the World Series, no, it doesn't need to be in Holland.
I haven't got an issue with it.
If you look at the absolute deepest political level, the World Series will have some sort of mission statement to grow the game. Amsterdam is not growing the game.
But it's putting money in their pocket.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
Yeah, I'm not denying that, but I'm saying that's wrong. To use this to just earn more money is wrong when the World Series serves a purpose to grow the game in emerging markets. The minute that you put it in one place for financial reasons, what you basically said is we can do what we want with this, and everything else that you've ever told us about the World Series is irrelevant.
What's rule one?
You know, but that's what I'm saying. They keep setting precedents. They did it with the Premier League for the last 2 years, where they basically said, especially this year, that the Masters is more important than the European Championships. And now they've gone with their World Series. We're going to put it in a nation that is arguably the second most developed dart playing nation in the world that isn't within the British Isles, because they're willing to pay more money to have it there. Pay for more Euro tours then. You can't be chucking a World Series there for financial reasons. You have to be chucking a World Series there because it's going to grow the game. And you can't get much bigger than it is in Holland.
That's the only reason Germany ever got a World Series, because they paid the money.
But Germany's growing, and Germany was growing when it first became a thing and is still growing. It's still waiting to produce that next level superstar. You think about Dutch, you've had Barney, we've had Van Gogh at the very, very top of the game for a long, long time, and we've got significant amount of Dutch players in the top 32, the top 64 and beyond. Dirk Van Duijvenbode is the next one. We've seen Jeffrey de Zwaan have glimpses, etc. The Germans are getting there, but they aren't quite at the level where a Clemens or a Max Hopp or a Schindler or a Hempel are top 8 caliber.
Interestingly, that Gary Anderson at the moment only has 2. Johnny Clayton only has 2. Now, the Anderson one I completely get. But, boys, see, Twitter, a lot of fans not happy that a man that won 4 TV events last year has not got them all.
Yeah, I think Johnny Clayton should be. But then when you look at the Situar, there's only one player I would personally pull out of it, but that's just because I'm not a huge fan of him. But what I would say is, obviously I'm heading towards James right there. But what I would say, Doug, before you interrupt, Johnny Clayton should be in above some of the others anyway. For me, probably should be in above a Michael Smith winning. I know we got to a world final, but should be in as above him. So I don't want it to look like I'm just siding against James Wade, because I'm not. That would just be if I was swapping one for one. But I understand why Fallon's in, makes total sense, deserves that opportunity. I understand why Derwin, Price, Peter Wright and MvG are in there, then it'll be the 3. So it's between, it would be Wade, Michael Smith, but I would actually put Johnny Clayton above both of them, and then it's the decision of, do you put in Wade or Smith, would be how I would work it. And then obviously they would drop into those 2 spots for the other ones. I don't think it's right that Johnny Clayton isn't, but it is going to be based on opinion.
I think it's twofold, and it's completely the fault of the PDC ranking system. Johnny Clayton won 4 televised events last year. How many were ranked? 1, 2? That doesn't reflect. That doesn't reflect in the world rankings, if all 4 of them are ranked in some capacity, he's absolutely miles above. What you'd see is them picking the top 4. The problem is that between now and all of these events, the top 4 are going to change a lot. You look how close Van Gerwen, Wade and Smith are. They're going to keep swapping places so frequently that they can't justify going, we've picked the top 4, because at the time of the event, the top 4 is very likely to be very, very different. The only one that will really make a difference if somebody from slightly further out wins the match play to go to Australia and they've got those spots open.
But just one other name, if you're talking about that, and that every, let's say, TV event is classed as a ranking in that equivalent, then surely the arguments will be there for Joe Cullen as well. Yes, he's in the Premier League, but why would that be different to being above Michael Smith or being on the same pedestal of James Wade in regards to being picked? I know he's in the Premier League, but it's another one. Does it? Joe Cullen is one I expected to see in the field, not as the top 6, but I did expect him.
Just one thing.
That was quite a nice break.
Just one thing. Take Fallon out of the equation for a minute. Is it not just becoming an extension of the Premier League?
No, Dimmy's there.
In 2, but the bulk of it is an extension of the Premier League.
Yeah, it was sarcastic. And this, look,
which is what we spoke about before when we came to the Premier League. The Premier League, I wasn't totally against it, but I did have the caveat of the World Series then giving players an opportunity who we're not going to see, because the Premier League should have more than 8 players in it for me. That then there's the 3 or 4 who missed out on. I know some of them, I'll bring his name up, but he's not going to class as the marketable player in someone like Jose. But there's others in there as well, like Joe being one of them. And obviously he's playing in there. But there's a list that should be in an event for Gary Anderson to be in 2, Johnny to be in 2, Dimmy to be in 2, and then there's other players that probably should have been given an opportunity, if not to be in one of them. I understand the sits. I don't think there should be 6, maybe 4 that should be in every event, and then the rest should then be split, which would then open up more opportunities. Because if you only had Fallon, Price, Wright, and MvG as your 4 in every event, yes, you could put Wade in 2 or 3, and yes, you could put Smith in, but it would then open up a couple more windows for other players to be in there. Like Aspinall, who's coming back into some form.
I think that would be the case if it wasn't for the fact that Michael Van Gerwen could be world number 5 by the time these events go off. And at which point you've then got to justify to Michael Smith and James Wade why you've left them out. Fallon is what makes that difficult.
Because it's
always
an
going to be one of
exhibition.
your for this entire thing.
But as we've alluded to, it's an exhibition.
The other one to consider, by the way, we're off to Holland, whether we agree with that or not. Danny Noppert won the UK Open a few weeks ago. Which side is he going to fall on?
He's on the 8. The regional the email, the press release, the 8 highest Dutch players make up the other side.
Not sure I agree with that either. He's won a major. Won the only major of the year.
Fallon's in them all, mate. The issue I have, and look, media is a big part of the World Series because it's going and talking to the local press, the local media. This isn't us. This is when they're at these places. They go and do radio. They go and do TV, and everything like that. So Dimitri is perfect. Speaks 5 languages. Can go and do whatever you want. Some of the ones they've picked, let's be fair, their media skills aren't great.
You're not going to get a lot from a lot of them. You don't get a lot from a lot of them. If you get anything, it's whinging from Michael Smith, from James Wade, or from Gary Anderson. I love Johnny Clayton to bits, but he doesn't really offer you an awful lot in terms of exceptional story. It's just humble, down-to-earth kind of guy. Brilliant, but that doesn't write headlines. Van Gerwen doesn't really write headlines anymore because he's been there, he's done that, he's got ridiculous records, etc. It's only if him and Peter Wright start going at each other, and Gerwin Price writes headlines every week on his own Instagram account. Ta-da! We've been there, we've done it, and we've seen it.
Do we know what time? No, we're not sure whether New York's going to be time shifted or recorded. Australia and New Zealand means I'll be getting up at 6:30 every morning to cover it, unless I go.
I would.
I
don't like you guys that much.
That's the World Series. Last one before we start getting your questions in as well. I promise we'll do 10-minute questions as well. But the last one, I was asked to put this on today as well.
You're killing him.
The ADC's first 2 tour events are coming up as well. I was asked if we could put that up and give it a mention. I'm interested to see how this all plays out, boys.
I've been very impressed with the things I've seen so far. Marketing and pushing and social media still needs the opportunity to grow a bit. Darts Atlas as a software looks really, really good. I haven't had a full play around with it, but in terms of a central location to host any darts tournament you want, build it towards something, I really do like the concept of it.
Yeah, Daniel, there's nothing to talk about the Euro Tour, mate, because the draw's not done. So we can't do anything on it until the draw's done. We don't know who's playing who or anything, unfortunately.
We know where the seeds will drop in, and at that point, it's not worth our time. Not this. That sounded really bad, but it's just we could just speculate a little bit.
Yeah, Johnny. As long as it doesn't clash with anything, I'll come up, mate. Right. So before we get into the questions, boys, have we missed anything in 2 weeks of darts? I think we've just about squeezed everything in.
Adrian's statement is interesting. Not a question, but a statement in the chat room.
No, I agree. And I stand by my original tweet. Being threatened to be thrown out of the Lakeside for tweeting it was interesting. Gob's now got his head in his hands.
No, just bite my nail. I ain't got many left, but I'm just biting my nail.
Yeah, no, look. In my opinion, they shouldn't have been there. After Paula had played, there was no need for them to be there.
Well, other players hang around and watch the rest of the games, etc.
But I disagree with that as well. That back room's like a jolly boys outing.
I kind of don't.
Honestly,
it's right. It's right.
I'll say, Liam, we would have had nobody to talk to if that wasn't the case, because no one else did they, Lee?
It's like you got people preparing for matches, and it's like a social club.
Social clubs are the best. Cheap alcohol.
I'm not saying they're not.
We haven't looked ahead to Champions Week. Have you got the field for Champions Week, please?
Yeah, 2 seconds. So Champions Week obviously gets underway tomorrow, and it is Group A will be Josh Payne. No, it won't. Well, that will be, but not. I'm looking at the wrong one. Will be Josh Payne, Dan Reed, Mike Warburton, Adam Smith-Neal, James Richardson, and Robert Owen. Group B will be Matty Denon and Nick Kenny. And Group C will be Paul Hogan, Lee Evans, Richard North, and Andy Hamilton. That's a bloody good week.
Yeah. Try and pick a winner from that. That is going to be great viewing across this week.
Yeah.
Especially that we've seen a lot of them playing in live lead and other competitions over the past couple of weeks. So should be the week.
Yeah, Adrian says, "Oh my God, for apparently I was disrupting the tournament. I was told."
Who was?
Me. I was disrupting the tournament. That's why they were going to throw me out.
You're never getting invited again either. The last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes have gone. Yep, back alive.
That's fine. It means I'd have to spend 9 days at the social club, so it's all right. Works for me.
I'll let you both in for the world seniors. Don't you worry about that, guys.
I was coming in anyway.
Not after the way you spoke to me last time.
One little story that did come out on Sunday morning as well at Lakeside, which I found very, very surprising, is that there was someone in the media room who tweeted that they had a COVID. They'd been tested positive for COVID. We was all informed as media, but found it very, very surprising that the players were not aware that this person had COVID on Sunday and were never told at any point, however the media was. That I found, and that is just off, obviously, what's been on social media, that I found it a very, very strange approach from the WDF to allow the media to know. Obviously, we'd been in a room with that person, but then for the players not to be informed who had spoke to her and had been interviewed by that person, just a very, very strange way to approach the situation. Obviously, the rules are different to what they were months back, but found it very, very strange.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was strange. I'll give you that one. How do players get selected for the live league? Basically, we're looking for the best players outside the 128, and we use the challenge tour and everything. We've got reference to see how people are playing and X, Y, and Z. But there will be some exciting news around the live league dropping in the next few months. It's only going to get bigger and better, boys.
There's a few players from Reading that have been knocking on the door for a call up as well.
There's a few players at Lakeside asking the very same question.
From Reading, I know that one of them is certainly on the list to be contacted.
Good.
But yeah, it's just trying to fit them all in. But yeah, that's how we do it. What else have we got? Oh, someone asked about. Go on, mate.
Go on, Phil. Go on.
No, go on, mate.
All I was going to say is one that come up earlier, which was around, and he said we'd come back to it, was around the WDF finalists, maybe, getting a place in the Grand Slam of Darts. Was that a question that was asked?
Yeah, can't see it this year.
Certainly a debate on social media earlier on today, once again.
Can't see it this year.
That coupled with a World Series announcement that people don't agree with was not a good combination for Twitter today.
No. I can't see it this year. I don't know about you boys. Long term, hopefully, but certainly not this year.
I would like to see it. However, there's more question marks around that competition probably for the PDC than there is anything else, from venue to should it be a rant or unrant event, should we have WDF, ADC, seniors, qualifiers, should we have, obviously the women can qualify for the women's series, but should we have Beau and Kirsty potentially in from them being in finals? There's all sorts of question marks around that event that we are now in April and we don't even know. We have an estimation, but we don't even know when that's being played or where it's being played at, which I find very, very strange. But
yeah, so yeah,
I would like to live in there.
let's run through a
the
couple
other
of
one.
very, very.
Go on, Gob.
We
You do
missed
that. I'm
your-
just looking for something. Going
Okay. Not Sam. HJV, you are absolutely right. We did miss the challenge tour 2 weeks ago, but the show has just been far too chock-a-block to even discuss that. The main takeaway, Stephen Burton had a very, very good week chasing. Scott Williams also top of the table by £2,300. Good to see Andy Jenkins back in the winner's circle late on. Good runs for Carol Sedlacek. A little bit of movement in that top 16 or so. We've got Pete Burgoyne dropped a little bit. I think Matt Eggers dropped a little bit from where he was. I thought Michael Flynn had a really, really good weekend. The Irishman. And Jeremy Van der Winkel as well seemed to find himself going deep a couple of times, but that's about as much as we're going to cover on the Challenge Tour in a week that's just got so much more at a level above. Craig says, can Beau Greaves play in the women's series, and do you feel she can be top 4? Yep, any player, any female player can enter. I think the takeaway from a lot of her interviews this week was that she wasn't planning on it just yet by the sounds of things. She's free to do whatever she wants now, but...
Yeah, so spoke to both on and off camera, and she's going to seriously consider it now with picking up the title that there's an opportunity for her to go to the Nets women's series to then qualify for Blackpool. The only thing is it just clashes with an event in Denmark, I believe. So she's considering it. She's seriously considering it and going. I think obviously there was a lot of question marks about Beau with playing in front of a camera, playing on a big stage, all that, and the fact that she's now gone on and proved what she can do, probably swaying her more towards having a go at qualifying for Blackpool. But from what we got yesterday, is still something that she's considering, not that she's decided on, that she spoke to me about after the final. But it's more of a consideration after that week than it was before.
Couple of bits as well. No, Daniel, the Euro Tour is Saturday to Monday this week because Friday is the German bank holiday. So it's there. Also, I knew there was something around the Amsterdam World Series Day. Clashes with the ladies series. One day, if Fallon were to make it to the final day of the Amsterdam Masters, she would probably have to miss Women's Series 9 and 10, and it would be a rush to get her back to Barnsley for 11 and 12.
Yeah, that's not great at all.
No, I knew I'd seen it somewhere.
Slightly concerned then. If Dieter's going to be back for the women's series, Beau's going to be back as well. Well, potential for Beau to be in it. Sorry, we've literally just had that discussion. Mikuru
does plan to come over, yes.
That's big. I mean, she's pretty much in the 8 already, not 100%.
But it's more the Slam and the Worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not ideal. That's not great planning. I appreciate we're running out of days in calendar, but...
Tommy says, are Dieter's best days over? Sadly, look, great. No, great's too not good enough. Absolutely phenomenal ambassador for the sport. But yeah, I think Dieter's best days are behind her now.
Yeah. She said afterwards that she was struggling a little bit with her injury coming into this week. I think what we will see is we'll still see her get into the back end of tournaments and potentially seeing her pick up the odd one, whether it be on the women's series, the odd day, picking up a few WDF events, but actually pushing the top names in in the field consistently. Probably not, because they are a step above the 4 that are in that mix, 4 or 5 that are in that mix.
Yeah, gotta say, massively impressed. Like, we know we're talking about the ladies. Massively impressed with Kirsty Hutchinson across the week as well.
Yeah, not enough credit probably done to Kirsty because of all the attention being on Beau, and understandably that being the case. But she was outstanding. The one that really stood out for me was beating Rhiannon in that semi-final, because Rhiannon had played some incredible stuff. And if Rhiannon could have followed up what she was doing early on in the tournament, she could have potentially pushed Beau. And there's not many players we could have said that about in the tournament. But for Kirsty to get over the line, just shows that was someone a couple of years ago who was contemplating not playing in certain events, not playing much at all, didn't really want to be up on stage and stuff. So for her to put into that performance and get to a final was an absolutely incredible achievement for Kirsty. And like I said, it's no bad thing losing 4-0 when Beau's performing like that, because she would have wiped out most of Phill from both the women's and the men's side. But yeah, incredible. Yeah. Another one for me in that sort of women's series, hopefully for the PDC, we'll see over it, was Tori. I thought Tori was very good. Just didn't turn up against Lorraine. But generally, Tori had a very, very good week. Yes, comfortably beat Dita. But another one to watch. And hopefully we will see her playing it in the PDC events as well.
Yeah, I am with you. Well, that just about wraps us up. We are deep into Fergie time. Everyone, thank you very much for staying with us and for the extended version of the Live Lounge. We knew it was going to be manic because there was so much going on. For me personally, I just want to thank the whole team for the effort put in over the last 12 to 13 days. Absolutely incredible from everyone. So that's a massive thank you from me. But we go again. We make sure we have everything covered, and we cannot wait to keep it bringing you all the darts coverage, boys. It's been a fabulous show as always. Plenty coming up. I will be in Manchester this week or this Thursday for the Premier League, but loads going on. We have been Online Darts. Thank you very, very much for the last 2.5 hours of your Monday, and we will see you all very, very soon.